We go over the latest James Borrego audio. Is James Bouknight challenging for more minutes? Plus, we go over some latest trade proposals, all today on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, local experts on the #1 daily sports podcast network. You can thank you for making, I don't know why you can thank us. I don't know why I decided to change up the script
You
there.
can thank me whenever you want. I'll take a thank you.
Yeah, you can thank me for giving you this excellent read. You can thank Doug for laughing at me, but we're going to thank you for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day. We're free and we're available on all platforms. That includes YouTube. Can we get a counter, Doug? What number are we at now?
Last I checked, it was 9:30. You can thank me for getting Walker a new microphone.
That's right. Look at this.
Great.
Yeah, it's quite the contrast going from bright white with this blue windscreen. I still wanted to get something from the old mic because you've set me up with the equipment, at home equipment, both times now, and now I've upgraded. Is that just because now
I'm your podcast sugar daddy?
You really are. I really like that title for you.
Your pod daddy.
That one sounds. I don't know why I like podcast sugar daddy more than pod daddy.
PSD.
Yeah, that's what you are to me, Doug. You do give me PSD, and I thank you for that.
Sometimes I give you PTSD.
I think that's the joke. That's the one I was going with. We were going for PTSD. Thank you for the mic, though, Doug. I do appreciate it, and I appreciate you giving me all this beautiful content we have today. We've got some audio we're going to go over. James Borrego talking about James Bouknight, LaMelo Ball's aggression, and their paint decisions, which I know you talked about is pretty hard when you're a homeowner, Doug, and trying to make decisions on the right paint you want to use.
Yeah, well, that can send you down the longest of rabbit holes. You will be Alice in Wonderland if you try to go to the paint aisle in Home Depot. You're going to waste a whole damn day trying to do that.
Yeah,
it's one of the I think most consuming decisions as a homeowner is choosing what paint color.
Yeah, I can imagine so. I haven't had to do that yet, but you do it with the intent that it's going to be permanent because it's just such a pain to paint. And so I can understand that. Not what Borrego was talking about, though. He was talking about something completely different regarding these players. And so we'll get to that in just a moment as well. Talking about that Clippers game, still pretty long rest before they play their next contest against the Boston Celtics. So they had a rest yesterday and today until you play Boston tomorrow. And Doug, James Borrego was talking about a couple of problems that they've had with these teams that defend at a high level, and in particular, they defend the paint at a high level. Here's James Borrego talking about the positives from that Clippers game, but also the negatives and just overall the kind of teams they've had to battle so far.
Good defenses, good rim protection. I'd say that. A lot of these teams, and we're going to face another one on Wednesday. There's elite rim protection. And, Atlanta bothered us with their length and size at the rim. Obviously, last night, same thing. I think we missed the second most rim attempts in the NBA this season. Now, the positive is we got to the paint the most in the NBA last night. We touched the paint with the ball the most of any team in any NBA game this season last night. So that was a positive. Now it's just about rim decisions, paint decisions, and finishing. It's a combination. There were some that we could have finished, and there were some that we could have kicked out. There was obviously, we got to be better in our spacing. That's what we addressed today. We still want to get there, but it's just about making the right decision, and part of that is being in the right spots.
Yeah, and we talk so much about the defensive end of the court when addressing the big man position. But offensively, if you can get somebody that can shoot a crazy high percentage as a big guy that's 6'10 or above, that is the rim threat, that's also something we've kind of touched on here and there, but we've always focused more defensively. That's where the P.J. Washington lack of finishing down low comes in, even though he is a good offensive threat stretching the floor. And then you get to those paint decisions, Doug, and it's LaMelo Ball trying to figure out exactly what to do when he gets to the goal. Anybody else that drives down there. Miles Bridges, he's finishing at a level right now where his decision should be just shoot and go through contact. It doesn't matter how ugly the shot's going to be because they're all falling in for him at this moment. So maybe you just go ahead and put him up. What did you think of the James Borrego audio?
Well, I think he's dead on. I mean, so frequency-wise, the Hornets are the third best team at getting to the rim. 36.3% of their offense, according to Cleaning the Glass, goes to the rim. But accuracy, they are 18th in the league, 63.7%. Shocking number, though. At the 18th in the league and the 63.7% at the rim actually is kind of the best in franchise history, or at least in modern franchise history since 04-05. This team has generally been awful at the rim, and this shocked me. I had to look at these numbers a couple of times to make sure I was looking at them correctly, because I would have thought, at least in the Al Jefferson Bobcats years, they would have accumulated some gaudy rim numbers, but not really. James Borrego has it's the best offensive team in modern Bobcats Hornets history, seventh in the league right now in effective field goal percentage at 54%. So they're taking a lot at the rim and they're missing a lot. And I think it comes down to a couple of things. Yes, you have to have a big man who can finish or get fouled. Mason Plumlee has struggled with some of these rim attempts. You know, when you get it to him easy, it's been great, but some of these pocket passes that LaMelo has thrown have turned into turnovers instead of buckets or fouls. The second thing is, how many of the rim attempts are coming in transition where you can get easier buckets versus the half court where it becomes a lot tougher, and it's really inherent on whoever's facilitating it at the rim to decide whether this is a genuine, opportunity to score at the rim or whether it needs to get kicked out, and that's a major decision point.
Yeah, and talking about the Al Jefferson stuff, you think of him and he was an awesome post scorer, but that's not the modern NBA where you look at points per possession. When you talk about post ups, it's actually not a very efficient play to go to, and so maybe even if Al was phenomenal at it, it's not like that's the most efficient shot. And James Borrego said it in this practice availability too. It's the number one thing we work on. What kind of decisions do we need to make in the paint, and then trying to finish at the goal? And also we work on the three-point shot as much as anything. Those are the things that we work on as much as any team in the NBA.
Yeah, you go to the rim hoping to get fouled because those free throw attempts are generally more efficient. That's what made James Harden, his drive was so deadly, not because he was hitting a bunch of layups. He could do that too, but it was because every time he entered the paint, it was probably going to end up being free throws. One thing on the Al Jefferson piece, in 13-14, they were fourth in the league in short mid at 41.7%. So I wonder if Al liked to set up on the low block, but he didn't necessarily like to always go to the rim. So maybe there was that aspect that I'm looking at there, some of his shots being counted as short mid. But it is shocking that this team has been so terrible. I mean, even in the playoff season, 15-16, they were 23rd in the league at the rim. They were just 12th in the league in three-point shooting and just average in the mid-range. And so that equated to a top 10 offense that year.
So let's go to one more soundbite before we take this break, because I think if you look at LaMelo Ball and his assist numbers, they've been not necessarily down, but he only had 2 against the Lakers. He only had 3 against Toronto. It's not like you're used to seeing him put those types of assist numbers up. Now, he did have 10 against the Clippers. He had 13 against Indiana. So I don't want to make it like this is some big problem. It's absolutely not. But you're seeing more field goal attempts from him, 19 against the Clippers, 18 against the Lakers, Gordon Hayward gone, Kelly Oubre. There's some things we can expect from LaMelo while guys are gone. But here's James Borrego discussing the aggression from one LaMelo Ball, how frequent it is, and just how it might show up rather than just looking to score it all the time.
He came out last game and played with the right mentality, tried to get downhill, make plays for others. At third quarter, at times, I've seen him be more aggressive as a scorer, if that's what you're referring to. But I think in general, Melo plays aggressively as a player in general. He touches the paint more than anybody. He gets downhill. His usage rate is high. He creates a ton for us. So, I've seen him become a little bit more aggressive at times to score the ball as the game goes. But, I think for us, more than anything, he's got to start the game with the mindset of, let me get the drive and kick game started. Let me move the ball. Let me create for others. Let me set the table for my teammates early on in the game versus later on in the game. I think his fourth quarter mentality is there. I think that's where he's best right now, is the mindset of the fourth quarter of closing that game, taking what the defense gives him in the fourth quarter. And then, he's got to figure out what to do here in the second and third quarters. Do I stay aggressive with my shot, or do I try to get my teammates involved?
I think that's really telling, and I agree. When we talk about LaMelo Ball's development as a player, it's always going to be the decision-making as a point guard. And when we talk about fourth quarter stuff, we've seen him kind of take over in some of those and be successful at doing so. And then it's James Borrego saying you look at the second and third quarters, those have been he didn't say anything about it being a problem. He didn't say that. It's just constantly trying to figure out, okay, is it my time to facilitate? Is it my time to try to take over in the half court, whatever? And I think that's just natural growing pains for any point guard in the NBA.
Yeah, 2 notes on that. LaMelo Ball is unique in that he does have this otherworldly passing ability, but he also has an ability to score sometimes at will. And so when you possess both of those things, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. The curse part being that now it's on you to decide which weapon you are going to utilize, when you need to do that, and when it's best to do that. So I think that's what Borrego is hitting on there, that it really has to come down to Melo deciding, all right, what does the team need from me right now? Do they need me to facilitate to others, or are others not playing as well offensively and they need me to step up, get to the rim, score? They really need him to knock down 3-point shots. His 3-point percentage is bad, and he's starting to pass up good looks, which is a little concerning. Hopefully his confidence at the 3-point line returns when they go to Boston. The last thing that I'll say is that I think some fans of LaMelo, and then some Hornets fans too, would listen to that and go, okay, if you've liked what you've seen out of LaMelo in the fourth quarter, how about some more consistency with his minutes and his role in the fourth quarter, which tends to change. Sometimes he's playing to start the fourth quarter. Sometimes he's playing to close it out in a more traditional role. So, I would say if that's how Borrego feels, then, some consistency in that role, I think, would be warranted at this point.
And that's a JB identity. You don't know what he's going to throw at you. Yeah, nobody knows what kind of lineups he's going to come up with. Nobody knows the consistency of where these guys play, and that can be viewed as a problem. I don't know how that throws off the rhythm of some guys. Maybe it throws off the rhythm of the defense, which has to be the kind of intention Borrego is going with, but it might even throw off the rhythm of the offense for whatever player you're deciding to sit at that point or who to play at that point too. So we'll see. Let's talk more about these trades. First segment went a little long. Let's talk more about some of the proposed trades out there via Bleacher Report and some other publications. People think unusual circumstances mean complicated taxes, but for TurboTax Live experts, that's what makes things interesting. We all have unique lives, whether you invested in crypto for the first time this year, own an up-and-coming small business, or are raising rambunctious twins. Luckily, TurboTax Live has experts who can answer your tax questions, walk you through the whole process, or do your taxes for you from start to finish. They help you get every deduction you deserve. No matter your unique situation, you can talk to a TurboTax Live expert through your phone or computer without leaving your house. TurboTax Live experts are here to help you however you need, and if you need an extra hand your taxes off to them, and they'll do it all for you. To TurboTax Live experts, and interesting life can mean an even greater refund. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. You do your thing. They've got your taxes. Intuit TurboTax Live. We appreciate you joining us on the Locked On Hornets podcast. More to come, talking trades, talking James Bouknight minutes. That's coming up next.
This is Locked On Hornets.
Then I clicked on M. Thomas. I'm like, who the hell is M. Thomas? Matt Thomas is his name.
NBA legend, Matty Thomas. Matt
he
Thomas. I'm pretty sure Matt Thomas served me at an Applebee's the other day.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
All right, Doug, let's get to something we weren't able to get to just last week. But before we get to Jake Fisher kind of reporting something where the Hornets might be interested in a player, except not necessarily a big man. Also, he puts out somebody in Houston that they might be interested in. It's somebody we haven't talked about. A YouTube poll. I didn't even know that we had a poll out there for YouTube. What is this, and is it good for us?
Yeah, so there is this polling feature on YouTube. I should have had this ready, so let me get it up and running here.
That's fine. I can filibuster if you want to as you try to put this up, because I'm a little afraid of the YouTube poll. I told you a couple times I didn't realize how crazy the YouTube comments were going to be when we got here. And so any kind of poll, I can't imagine, is met with any rationale on part of the viewers. But I'm excited to see it. We can put the crazy numbers out there.
Yeah, so we're just getting started with the polls, so I hope we can make this more a part of the show. But I just wanted to throw out sort of a test poll. So real easy question here. Should the Charlotte Hornets make a move before the NBA trade deadline? 127 votes. 88% of you think yes. 12% of you say no. Joseph comments, they must. They need it, most especially if they want to be in the first round of the playoffs. It's a must. Slat saying Terry got to go. Gordon, PJ, and Bumley for some assets. Man, Slat, that's brutal. And the Crazy and Proud says everyone wants this. Boysen says we need a better center. That's
okay.
the poll.
Yeah, I was asked this on the Afternoon Rush yesterday too. Like, do they need to make this trade? And I said, if you want to compete in the first round, you do. You know, that's the bottom line. If you think you can prolong this timeline a little more, then you don't need to, and you can wait towards the offseason. And
I'm with Roderick Boone. I don't know if you saw his latest article in The Observer, but I'm right there. He even used the last line of his article was like, the time is ticking, and I've been saying that over and over. Tick, 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 tick. Like, LaMelo Ball is not going to get any younger, and his prime is approaching, and it might already have started, and it's time now to get him some players that can get this team into championship contention.
All right, so maybe some of those players would be a Miles Turner or a Christian Wood or some of the usual suspects that we talk about via the trade. Or maybe it could be Cedi Osman. Doug, is that the guy that you thought might help this Hornets team? Well, Jake Fisher put out there last week, as the trade market seems to have a few two-way wings available, several teams, including San Antonio, Charlotte, Dallas, and Milwaukee, have phoned about a Cedi Osman. What do you make about them swinging for the big fish and going after Cedi?
This is not the first time that the Hornets have been interested in Cedi Osman.
Right. I forgot about that, but that's so right.
So I wonder, part of me wonders if this isn't some information that is being sort of recycled, reused, that if Charlotte is not necessarily contacting about Cedi Osman now, but has contacted the team about him in the past, I would be a little bit suspect about whether, like, right now they think Cedi Osman is an option, because they are so, I think, heavy at the wing. Maybe Cedi Osman, if they move some wings in order to acquire a big man and they're looking to restock, possibly. But I would be a little bit wary about this rumor.
Yeah, I would too. And this is not to say anything.
If they listen, I'll tell you one thing: if they only come away with Cedi Osman at the trade deadline,
that's not going to be the big swing you wanted. Yeah, I figured you would. Yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. You know, this is somebody that I feel like when you talk about the wings that they have on this team, I think you would just probably roll with them. And also, you know, this isn't to say that Jake Fisher is completely without any kind of evidence on the Hornets' interest here with Cedi, but we know, I always go back to that Marc Gasol rumor where Hornets, they were right on the line of making that deal to go get Marc Gasol, Mitch Kupchak's first go around, and it was Shams Charania putting that out there constantly, and it was like, you know, and then Mitch Kupchak would speak. He's like, look, I honestly don't know how close we ever really were to making a trade for Marc Gasol. And then you hear some stuff about the Andre Drummond interest, quote unquote. And then it's like, well, you know, from people that I knew that kind of knew about that, it's like, look, Hornets aren't really interested in Andre Drummond. So, you know, when you talk about like this, they may have shown some interest, but it probably was just like a phone call, because Mitch does make frequent phone calls and then he doesn't give you what you want. Like, that's what we've come to see from him as general manager. And it's been a really patient blueprint. Bobby Marks talked about that on the latest Low Post podcast he appeared on. So that's what I kind of think. Here's another player we can get to real quickly.
Okay. Jake give me somebody now. Hold on. Now give me somebody good. All right. We did Cedi. Let's get rid of Cedi. I want somebody good here. Give me a good, juicy player rumor that I can sink my teeth into.
Oh, for sure. No, this is going to be the main course, baby. This is going to be an excellent one. You ready?
My mouth is watering, saliva accumulating within my jowls.
Okay. Another Houston veteran drawing significant interest of late.
Yes.
Has been center Daniel Tice.
No! No!
Tasty. The high price for Miles Turner has led several teams, including Boston, Charlotte, Milwaukee, and Toronto, to inquire about the Rockets' big man. So how about Daniel Tice, Doug? Is that somebody that you find tasty here in Charlotte?
My mouth is immediately dry.
Yeah,
that immediately dried my mouth. I swallowed all of my saliva.
He was the exact
That does not excite me at all.
Yeah, he was.
That's a step backwards. That's like, why are these rumors rerunning free agency rumors of yesteryear? I know. I want the future. The future is possibly a cheap Miles Turner or a Sabonis or a Nurkic. That's the future. I don't know. Daniel Tice, Christian Wood is the future. Daniel Tice is the past.
He is the past, but he might be the future. And I said this as the exact example when moving on from Cody Zeller. If they do that and then view Daniel Tice as this big upgrade, that I was going to riot. But instead, they just kind of viewed that with Mason Plumlee. That's what they decided to do. So can you imagine going from, yes, Cody Zeller to Mason Plumlee to Daniel Tice as your starting center? I mean, good God. Look, the jokes, they write themselves with that one. I mean, the Hornets, the jokes have already been about them drafting big white guys, and now if they're just going to continue to trade for all of them, I mean, I'm sorry. At sometimes, so look, you're just susceptible to this now because you keep going after them.
I don't care. I want someone that can score effectively at the rim or get fouled. I mean, sure. I just want someone, just give me someone who can protect the rim and score at the rim so that the Hornets don't have to be in the basement of rim accuracy year after year after year.
I would agree. We'll see what they decide to do. We'll see if their big fish is Daniel Tice or Chetty Osman. All right. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning? You don't have to do that anymore. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Don't choose to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every single customer. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or your truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. They have an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Also want to discuss Bet Online. There might be less football being played, but betonline.net has way more odds and info for this playoff season, from scores, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land. Bet Online is the #1 spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And it's not just football. BetOnline.net's basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC odds coverage is the best in the business. From sports down to your favorite Vegas casino game, line is your #1 online wagering destination. BetOnline, the fastest and the easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's play some more James Borrego audio on James Bouknight coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You are listening to the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Main character for American Psycho was Patrick Bateman, which really confused me. I always thought that Jason Bateman was Patrick Bateman and that Patrick Bateman was Jason Bateman.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
All right, Doug, if you look at James Bouknight, he's been somebody getting a little more minutes as the season has gone on. And I thought he was going to get some right off the bat, kind of, because they lost a few players on offense, but Kelly Oubre's been outstanding. You look at Ish Smith, who really helped them at the beginning of the season. So now when you look at James Bouknight, now he's kind of getting downhill a little more. We love his ability to get to the basket, and we've seen him play against, I think it was Oklahoma City. We saw him play against the Clippers a little bit. Indiana, right? So so all of these teams here lately, he's been getting some kind of run. James Borrego was asked about that, whether he's challenging for minutes, and Borrego said, yeah, he kind of is.
I think Book has showed progress. He's shown that he can impact this roster and impact games for us, certainly. Once we're fully healthy, obviously I got to make that call and that determination. But he's one of those guys I got to continue to watch. His ability to get downhill and create. He's had some big games for us. I thought he played really well in Toronto, Indiana game. Obviously, we're going to need him in Boston as well. So if he continues to show growth, Will, he's definitely going to be a part of the equation, or at least be in the conversation. And that's his job, is to put pressure on me, and so far he's doing that. So.
Yeah, you look at his game log, right? So 7 minutes.
Sorry, I ended that bite a little awkwardly there. It sounded like he had a lot more to say.
That's fine. If you look at the game against OKC, 7 minutes there. That was the first time we saw him appear here recently. Mm-hmm. Atlanta, 17 minutes. Toronto, 29. Pacers 22, 7 against the Lakers, 19 against the Clippers. Obviously, some of that is because of some of the players that they've been missing. Gordon Hayward, health and safety protocols. Kelly Oubre, sprained ankle. McDaniel's been out with an ankle injury as well. So the question is, will he continue to get minutes when those guys come back? And it's going to be tough because defensively, as you've talked about, you're just going to trust all three of those players more so than Bouknight. What do you think about Bouknight's playing time as the season even goes into the not only latter half, but even last quarter?
I think that he has availed himself very nicely in this opportunity. I, like you, thought that they may lean on him more at the beginning of the season, but with some of these draft picks, you just never know. What that first little period before the season starts, the coach gets a really good idea of what a player can and can't do and what they're ready for. And I think part of his absence at the beginning of the season was as much about James Bouknight as it was Cody Martin stepping up and really showing what he could do and taking some of that early opportunity away from James Bouknight. But it's not like Bouknight has just sort of rotted on the bench. He's had some pretty brilliant performances in Greensboro, and so he's gotten plenty of experience. But Book is itching to get more playing time in the NBA, and I think he's done well. There have been some defensive issues. I thought, he got scorched by Brandon Boston like several times, especially at the end of that third quarter when the Clippers made their run. Yeah, so there are going to be those issues that I think prevent him from getting like a serious rotation role this season, but he's done enough. You heard James Borrego saying he's putting pressure on Borrego to start to think about it. I just don't think Borrego's going to seriously think about it unless there are multiple injuries or until we get another offseason under his belt.
And sometimes when you go to these press conferences and coaches are asked about players rather than them bringing whatever player up themselves, then you have to wonder how much of it is them wanting to speak glowingly about a player that they just got asked about. So they're kind of forced into it a little bit, right? That's a cynical approach. It doesn't mean that he doesn't like Bouknight. Bouknight's clearly getting more minutes.
Where's your belief? Why is the light? But you go to one press conference and all of a sudden you're like cynical, hardened.
I didn't even go.
Journalist.
It was just the Zoom. I didn't even go to it. It was just the Zoom press conference. So you
just clicked a button.
That's all I did. And now here I am thinking that I'm sourced like Wojnarowski. No, I think.
Let me tell you kids about something about press conferences.
That's right. I think I'm comparing it to the Jalen McDaniel side of things at the beginning of the season when he outwardly came out really and said, hey, Jalen McDaniels is putting a lot of pressure on me to play him. And maybe he was asked about it.
You're saying he said that unprompted.
Well, I don't know if he was asked about it. All I know is that he was a lot more like, hey, no, this guy is really playing.
He was effusive in his praise.
Yes, he really was. And so he was praising Bouknight, and we kind of have too here recently, and he's clearly been getting some runs. So, it'll be interesting to see because it's hard for a rookie to get time, especially with a playoff mandated season. But I will say, he's kind of on the developmental track as some of the second rounders that we've seen from Borrego before. Kai Jones is we're not playing him, that it's just not his time. But Bouknight, we've seen this with Devontae his rookie year. We saw it with McDaniels. We saw it with Martin. Those guys at the end, very different scenario because they weren't playing for something, but they still got run towards the second half in the latter part of the year. Now you're starting to see that a little bit with Bouknight. Now the question is, will it continue once these guys come back like Oubre and Hayward?
Yeah, and I think if this was a talented defensive team, that needed offense, that needed a little punch, then Bouknight would be getting minutes, right? I mean, Bouknight is suffering right now because this team is already poor defensively. If it were, the story of every rookie in this league is about situation, is about what circumstances they find themselves in and whether that benefits them or doesn't. I think, again, I just think next season is really, if Bouknight stays focused, which it looks like he has no problem doing, he looks engaged, he looks like someone that a coach would love, then I think he's going to have no problem breaking through in year two. And that's okay. Like, every rookie doesn't have to come out and have a LaMelo Ball like year.
For sure. No, and we've seen that here quite a bit. Miles Bridges didn't have a LaMelo Ball breakout year, and now look at him, what he's doing. PJ, while he might be performing to what you would hope an 11th overall selection would do for you, at least he's doing it, right? Like, I know they did a redraft on The Athletic, Sam Vecini, and I forget who was a part of them as well.
Love a good redraft.
A redraft had PJ, like, I think going a spot higher, and Cody Martin was way higher. He was drafted in the first round of that. So, kind of going
Caleb
to show
Martin, too, probably actually gets drafted.
You see the dunk last night?
Oh, man.
Caleb Martin goes after you. So does Cody.
Well, yeah, I don't doubt that they kept the correct code, the correct Martin. I don't doubt that, but I doubt whether they needed to get rid of both of them. Because, I mean, Caleb has been.
And
why give him to the Heat? That's the thing that burns you is, look, the Heat have no problem finding players like this elsewhere. We don't need to give them players.
Right. Well, and the thing about Cody, I was watching him in this last game too, just watching him shoot some 3-pointers. It's like, it's night and day. You trust him shooting a set 3-pointer where he's open. When he tries to take you off of the dribble or do anything remotely fancy, which is move with the basketball and then shoot, then you don't feel as comfortable. But he's not doing that, right? Like, there's a reason his percentage is so ridiculously high, how it's a complete 180 from what he was doing. I said this on the show the other day. It's not like he was a really bad shooter and then has become, hey, he's pretty good, like 38, something like that. The guy was atrocious, and now he's shooting lights out, and it's all set shots. He's getting set up, and he's just knocking them down on the shots you would want him to take.
Well, the interesting thing about Cody Martin is if he keeps up this level of 3-point production, then the scouting report suddenly changes on him. And you never know how long it takes for teams to really adjust when a player goes from just not being able to shoot at all to suddenly being able to shoot. How long does it take for those scouting reports to start to adjust? But when they do, it's going to open up opportunities for him to drive. And we know that, yes, when he gets fancy with the ball, when he has to move through certain players and try to create space, it gets a little bit dicey for him. But if he's got a clear takeoff to the rim, like, he's going to yam that sucker.
He's going to try.
Yeah, when
sure.
teams start running out on him, that's when there could be another level of his offense that opens up. So that's exciting.
Yeah, it is. All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for joining us and making us your first listen every day. We've got West Wednesdays. Wes Bryant going to be hopping on with us tomorrow to talk about all the latest in Hornets land. Now, make sure your second listen is Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.